Hi, I'm Maggie. Welcome to Experiments in Crafting. Tonight I've got a couple of small project updates, and then last week during the stream I was talking about the plastic LightUp crochet hooks that I have and how I was sort of lukewarm about them, and somebody suggested that I try out the metal LightUp crochet hooks, and I hadn't heard of those, and so while we were on stream, my husband and I talked about it a little bit, and we went ahead and ordered a few of, one set of them. And so you get like all the different sizes with the set. So I've got that to show you, plus the plastic ones that I've had for a while. And sorry, I was streaming myself on my own phone. Anyway, so I've got, I guess I'll start in with the project updates. So this is the blanket that I keep showing on stream over and over again. And I finally got it done, though I have not sewn in my ends yet. And I'm really happy with how it turned out. I think we're going to switch views so you can see it a little bit better. And it might just be a little bit blown out because it's all white, but this yarn also reflects light, like, super strongly. We had trouble with this yarn now that I remember it. It's okay. So it just has a really nice, simple scalloped border on the edge, and then the whole body is like a, what do they call this? A crunch stitch. And so it turned out really nicely. And like I said, I'm really happy with it. I'm going to, like I said, I gotta sew in my ends. You can see they're kind of all over the place. I ended up using 2 full balls and then a little bit of a third ball to finish this along here and then do the edge. So about 200 and probably 50 grams or so on this whole blanket. This yarn, so I used Lion Brand Comfy Cotton Blend, and this yarn had a lot of knots. In particular, one ball had a lot of knots. So this knot, this knot were all from one ball, and then I think this is my yarn change here. So where I added the second ball, and then this is a yarn change, like a ball change. So second ball there. So I've got a bunch of ends to sew in, and that doesn't include my, start and finish ends. So I've got to get those sewn in, but I'm glad to be done with it. It was really nice blanket, and I like the way that it's turned out. You can see, like, there's about the size of it. I like the way it turned out, but it was really time consuming. It was a really, really tight stitch with very little, what do I want to say? Like, very close stitch. There are very little holes, which is sort of unusual for a crochet blanket. It's one of the things that I really like about knit blankets, but since I don't knit, I often choose stitches that are really compact. This one in particular, though, just took a really long time. Just didn't work up very fast, but that's fine. So like I said, I'm really happy with how it turned out. So, in the end, pretty good. While it was working up, a little bit tedious, especially, this Comfy Cotton Blend yarn. I can't really say I recommend it. It was really splitty. It doesn't look so bad now that it's all worked up, but while I was working with it, I ripped back a lot of stitches in order to make them look a little bit nicer. And there's a couple in here that just don't look great. You'll see like little loops. It was just really, really splitty for me. So, Bridget says it's so pretty. I really, thank you. I really am happy with how it turned out. It was I guess a labor of love in this case. It took a really long time to work up, and the yarn was a little bit challenging. I've had blankets work up a lot easier than this one, but it's still very pretty. Also, I miscounted when I said about how much yarn I used. Each of the Comfy Cotton balls is 200 grams, and so this is closer to about a 450 to 500 gram ball. I forgot that they're not 100 gram balls, they're 200 gram. So that makes a lot more sense. When I said 250, I started thinking that seems really, really low for a blanket. So, probably between 450 and 500 for this blanket size. So, I'm going to set that aside. I don't have a whole lot to show, but I can show the very beginnings of the next project I'm working on. Crafty Kaitlyn saying hi. Welcome. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for everybody out there joining. Even if you're not chatting, welcome and welcome to the stream, I guess. Okay. Let's see. So I started working up a little amigurumi fox, and so far I've got his little feet. Well, I think these are arms, technically. Or, well, for the amigurumi, they're arms. I guess for a fox, they're feet, no matter what. But these are the arm pieces to the pattern, and I've worked up what is about half of the body portion. So, not a whole lot to show, but I did kind of want to show you how the sheep's stone-washed yarn works up. We'll zoom in a little bit more, but you can see, like, the stitches just look beautiful, and it's working up just so nice. There's no stuffing in here yet, and, like, it's holding its shape, and the stitches are just looking so nice. You can see, like, the stitch definition really well, but I don't know if you can see very well, but there's, like, a nice, like, teeny layer of fuzz that just makes it look cozier. I don't know. Something about the entire, this yarn is just really appealing. If you look at amigurumi at all, you'll notice that there are tons and tons of designers using the stonewashed line. The katana line gets used a ton as well. Probably because it has like 190 colors or some ridiculously high number, but these in particular, I don't know. I think there's like 50 or so of the stone washed and river washed colors, and I really am happy with how they're turning out. So these little arms will go somewhere up about yay here, a little higher. So I've got 2 legs to make, and 2 legs and a head and ears, I think, are the pieces left to make. So it's not a terribly complicated amigurumi, but yeah. So these are the colors that I'm using: moonstone, coral, and black onyx. So those are the 3 colors for my fox there. For some reason, I ordered a whole bunch of brown, thinking I was going to use brown, but I'm going to use black, I guess. So that's what I've got. Generally, I order my sheep's yarn from Wool Warehouse, but they've not been exporting to the U.S. recently, or, well, exporting at all. They're only shipping international. So, they're only shipping domestic right now. So they've suspended international shipping for right now, and so I'm looking forward to them coming back. I ended up having to order, I think, from 3 different places to get all of the colors I wanted, and even then, most of the colors that I wanted were still not in stock anywhere. So I wanted to order a handful more to make some little amigurumi dolls and stuff, but I will take what I can get, I guess, for right now. Marquita and Yaya Creations Crochet, welcome. Thank you for joining me tonight. And thanks for all the compliments. So, all right, I'm gonna set this aside. Like I said, there's not a whole lot to show at this time, but it's just something going on. All right. So the main thing I've got to show tonight is, like I said, last week on the stream, we were talking about the plastic crochet hooks that I have. So these are the LightUp plastic crochets that I have, crochet hooks that I have. And they're pretty simple. They're very similar in design to the Soft Touch, the Clover Soft Touch hooks. So these are, they're kind of this flat design this direction and a little bit wider. They remind me a bit of like a knife, and I think that's the style that they're intended for, is that people who hold their hook knife style. They'd be a little less comfortable if you use a pencil grip because they're much wider than they are thick. But the problem that I run into, so there it is lit up, which might not show up terribly well on stream, but it turns out that like the acrylic portion down here doesn't light up all that much, but the tip lights up a ton. And I don't know, you can see it's throwing quite a bit of light onto my hand. And so it's relatively intense light at like a very specific area, which is like the tip of the like hook, so you can see your stitches really, really well. And they worked really well for that purpose. I used them in the car when it was getting late, and it got me a lot of extra light in that very like tiny location. I've used them for black yarns or really dark yarns where the stitches are hard to see. That worked really well. And so, oh, well, batteries are escaping. So these just run off of 3 little batteries. They're like little watch batteries, and they've got a switch on the side. And that's actually the part of them that I like the least, is the location of the switch. I don't know. We should be able to get in on the switch a little bit tighter if I hold my hook still. Well, I wanted to show that it's got like teeth to it. So it's got this switch here, and it's like got these little ribs here so that you can slide it really nice and easy. But when you hold it, like when I hold it in my hand, that switch is right under my pinky finger. So it's right here. And as I'm rotating and moving my hook around, it starts rubbing on the inside of my hand right in here. And I've knocked it on and off a whole bunch of times. And 2, it just starts to irritate my hand as it kind of rolls back and forth. And I've tried fixing it so that it doesn't, but that's really just where it wants to be. I don't know if I could just, like, if I really wanted to use it, if I could throw like a little piece of tape over the top or what. But that's why I don't use them a ton, because I love my Clover crochet hooks. But I, in particular, don't love these because that little switch rubs on my hand. Yeah, and if it's dark, I'm sleeping. I'm going to check in on a couple of comments before I move on to the metal ones. Let's see. Catcraft asked about the sheep's box sets. By the way, I know that I'm probably saying sheep's wrong. I'm going to continue to say it wrong because I don't speak Dutch, and I'm giving it my best shot there. Let's see. The Stonewashed and the Katana from Hobby Lobby have no idea what to make with them ideas. There are a whole bunch of really cool blankets that are done in squares that have been showing up since those boxes started to get a little bit more popular. I haven't done any of those just because blankets in squares are a lot of commitment, I guess. But I've seen blankets out of both packs. So I think you can get roughly 2 like small squares out of one of the Katana or one of the sheep's like 20 or 25 gram balls, whatever they are in that pack. But yeah, they're pretty interesting because you get so many colors, but it is kind of hard to use them. Right now, the Stonewashed I'm using basically as a color book. I haven't touched any of the colors in it. And so like when I want to make an amigurumi or something, I go through and look like paint chips at the store. And I'm like, oh, I like this color, and these look nice together. And then I put them back in the box and close the box up. The Katana, on the other hand, I got wet in a flood, and in the basement, the pack had fallen on the floor, and they, or maybe it was sitting on the floor, I'm not sure. and they got damp, and I dried them mostly out, but they were not in amazing shape. So I've used a few of those as accent colors for some things, but those, I really ought to just throw them away and replace the box, but I keep using little bits and pieces here and there. Lots of comments. I'm probably going to have you scroll up because I missed, I think, 2 or 3. Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's see. We're going to scroll up a little bit so I can see the rest of the comments. All right. Jackie asked, I've been ordering from Demora's in the UK and they're shipping internationally. I don't think that's one that I tried. Unless Demora's is Lovecraft's. Daramora's? Yeah, Daramora's, it looks like. They might be related to Lovecraft, which I think is where I ordered from, and then also Webs, which is yarn.com. And I feel like I ordered one more place. I thought I ordered from 3 locations. But they shipped really quick, and at least Lovecraft did. But it took a really long time there was some debate on whether it shipped out of the US or out of the UK. I wasn't really clear on where it ended up coming from. And so it shipped really quick, but they used a courier service that took forever to get it from the courier service to the postal service. And that, had it hung up, and, it bounced back and forth between Missouri and Illinois, 3 times in that trip. It started in Missouri, went to Illinois, and then back to Missouri, and then back to Illinois. It was really a mess. So, but that's good to know that they're shipping international. I'll take a look and see what colors they've got in stock. Marquita says, I have the plastic lights and they squeak so terribly that I stopped using them. Glad that I'm reviewing the aluminum ones. So I'm going to get to those in just a second. I don't remember them squeaking terribly, but I didn't use them a ton. I tried using the E-hook quite a bit in the car. And like I said, it worked pretty well. The hooks were not terrible. I'm not a big fan of plastic hooks for that reason, and because the yarn has a tendency to drag, and it wasn't terrible. There's certainly nothing like the clover hooks, as far as slipperiness.
It looks weird, too, because it's not consistent. Won't that affect your gauge?
It's just harder to see where the shaft starts. So, it's got a neck back here. The shaft is pretty short on this hook. Where it goes all the way to here. It's probably just because of the way they had to connect it over the light. They probably had to flare it back out on the small hooks. It looks like that's something I didn't notice until my husband just pointed it out. It looks like the F hook and the E hook have that problem. And the G hook, which is not a G hook, it's a 4.5 millimeter. So on these hooks, you can see, do I have these in the right order? No. So this is the 3.5, 4, and 4.5. And you can see what's happening here is the size of the hook and the shaft that you need to tighten your stitches on is smaller than the size they needed to connect it over the light. And so there's a flare here where they've tapered it down. Which means that you can only really use about this much of the crochet hook because this part's too big to tighten your stitches on. Same here. They're a little less flare, but still there. And then this one is straight connected. And then all of the rest are straight connected. So they must have been able to modify the connection point here to make it a little bit bigger. But so you can see a bunch of them don't have a taper, but these 2 tiny ones do have a little bit of a taper. So that could be what my husband was just asking is if it was like a plastic on plastic squeaking. So if it was acrylic yarn that you were having trouble with, if it was squeaking worse than I experienced because I was probably using wool. Let's see. Jackie said she bought the box set with the 109 different katana colors to do the button blanket from It's All in a Nutshell and has about 25 colors left to work up. That's impressive. which means you've really worked through, what, 75 or so colors? Like, that's a lot to work up. I will say one of the things about those blankets where you use the color packs is there's usually, you have to buy a, what do I want to say? Like a contrast color. So usually it's a color and then like main color. And so you do color A and the main color B and the main color, you know what I mean? All the way through the 109 colors. And so there's like some common edge color or something like that with them. Let's see. Copperpot said, I just got one of the LightUp hooks to try. I wanted to love them, but staring at the light in the hook is almost migraine inducing for me. So I wound up getting a neck light instead. I actually noticed, like, not really a headache, but as well on this LightUp one, it's not a very bright light, but like moving it back and forth, because this one shines so readily like back at you, that flicker was a little annoying. I could see how it maybe could start to cause a headache after a while, but I didn't use it for that long. So but yeah, I could see that these plastic ones I didn't have that problem with, but the point at my hook is pretty much always away from me. I don't tip it back towards me so much, so that it wasn't like shining in my eye or anything. Let's see. It looks like I missed some more comments, or maybe we rolled down. I'm not sure which way we're going here. Okay. Bonnie Barker did a cute blanket out of bonbons. Those would be another good place to look, as anything for Lion Brand bonbons. That's a good suggestion from Zaina. They're roughly the same size. That's what I have over here. Actually, they might be a little bit smaller, but that's these Lion Brand. These are Lion Brand bonbons, and they come in like a set of like 8 colors that you can get. I've only ever seen them at Joe and Fabric, but I'm sure you can get them other places. So that's these guys. These are another thing that's good to have around if you like amigurumi. Like, there's just a tiny little bit for accent color. So these are the sparkly ones, and then I have like Christmas ones in here somewhere. This one. There's a whole bunch in here. So this is kind of my like weird yarn collection of teeny tiny yarns and like spare balls of yarn. Catcraft asked if the rubbing would be a problem if you throw your yarn like a knitter. So I do throw my yarn most of the time. At least I do. I throw my yarn like this. It still was bothersome to me when I was just going in and out of stitches, and I guess I probably roll my hand a little bit more maybe than other people do. Like I said, I don't think it's the end of the world, and I think you could maybe get used to it, but it was bothering me enough that I, put them aside. I honestly think you could probably get by with just, like I said, putting a piece of tape over here just so that, like, the little edges, you could maybe even just, like, sand them down. They're just a little bit sharp, I think, is really the problem. I wonder if we hit it with, like, a little bit of sandpaper and just knock the edge down, if it would be a little bit better. I don't think it's a deal breaker. It just was the part that I really didn't love about them. Yaya Crochet is interested in the aluminum light ups. I saw them recently and almost got them. Glad you're reviewing them. Tracy said Dara Morris has great yarn. And then Zaina is there's a big blue arrow over the middle of that comment. It's okay. We're scrolling back, and so a big arrow is popped up to let me know that there's more comments. Dara Morris is not Lovecrafts. Dara Morris has horrible shipping and no communication, horrible customer service. She's sticking with Lovecrafts. Okay. I guess Zeta's experience with Dara Morris shipping has not been super positive. I know I've said this a bunch of times, and it's probably starting to sound like a commercial for them. I really love Wool Warehouse. I have no affiliation with them, but it's really been like every experience I've had with them has been really good. Their shipping was really reasonably priced. It showed up super fast, and so like that's my go-to. But it is good to know that there is another option and that they are shipping internationally. Sometimes it's really just very difficult to get a good selection of the yarns out of the Netherlands in the United States. So the sheep's yarn, and I think there's one other company out of the Netherlands that is relatively popular that I've ordered before. I'm trying to remember what it is. Might not be out of the Netherlands. It might be out of Germany. But there's a couple there that I really like, and they're pretty difficult to find good selection here. You can find the brand, but you might get 4 of the 35 colors that they make. And I want all the colors, and I've had a really good experience so far with Wool Warehouse. Their shipping has been really reasonable. Let's see. Jackie said she's ordered from Deramori's 3 times during the pandemic and had it show up in less than 2 weeks on the west coast of Canada. That's particularly surprising because everything I know about Canadian shipping is super slow, which means that probably the vast majority of the 2 weeks was spent in Canada. So that could factor in. Also, people's gauge for what is super slow, like less than 2 weeks, sounds like a really long time for me. I like my yarn to show up in like 48 hours if I can help it. So it might be a balance of what people expect is fast shipping versus what people expect is nice and quick. So 48 hours is probably an exaggeration. I probably don't actually expect it to be that fast, but I think the last couple orders that I got from Wool Warehouse, I paid for the faster shipping, and it was here in like 4 business days, and that was with international shipping from the UK. I think they do same day delivery. Oh, Xanet's took 3 months. Well, that's seemingly like a major problem. Like either they sold you something they didn't actually have, or it got massively lost. I can't imagine that's a standard with them. But it is good to know that their customer service wasn't particularly responsive. Because I would think after like 3 weeks that they should have just reissued the order and dealt with whatever happened with the other. So, that seems pretty standard. Like, if it doesn't show up in a reasonable amount of time, they should just ship you a new order. So, all right. Well, I'm going to move on to the aluminum LightUp hook. So I showed it to you a little bit and explained one of the things that I had an issue with, but I'm going to just show the hook in a little bit more detail. So the set came with, I'm going to remove this top real quick. Come on. There we go. So we paid a little bit extra to get the extra hook sizes. All right. So the set came with a charging cable and a hook. Sorry. Yep. Charging cable and a hook. I'm not overly thrilled that it's a barrel jack like this instead of just micro USB or something more standard. I didn't expect it to be USB-C. There's no reason for it to be, but I was kind of hoping for like micro USB and like a little flap that you could have just peeled back. But this is a barrel jack style charger. It plugs in there and it, plugs into whatever power brick. It probably could charge off your laptop or whatever as well. But you've got that. Set that aside. The reason I don't love proprietary connections is like that's eventually going to get broken. And we can probably find a replacement for it, but it's so much easier if it's just micro USB. I have probably 1,000 chargers for that. So, the handle here, the silicone portion comes off of here. It's not super easy to get off. there's these little like triangled ribs on here that hold it on. I guess it's a good thing that it's not super easy to get off because you wouldn't want it slipping all over the place while you're working. And then in the little accessory pouch, they included 3 more options. Mine came in pink and I switched it to this aqua blue. But it looks like I've got yellow, red, and pink as alternate choices. And so you get basically 4 colors that you can play with here. So I'm going to set those aside. And then it came with some like little accessories. A plastic tape measure, like basically a plastic style of a cloth tape measure or measuring tape. A little test tube full of yarn needles. All of them are the straight type of needle, and it looks like there's 2 different sizes there. There's quite a few of them. I didn't actually count them before, but it looks like maybe 10 of them. I think there's about 10 here, 9 or 10, in like a little test tube. I kind of like this little test tube. I do prefer yarn needles with a hooked end, but they're still very nice metal yarn needles. And then a little pack of multicolored stitch markers. This is my favorite style of stitch marker, this little like locking safety pin plastic kind, and I like having a bunch of different colors, so that was a nice little bonus. This little baggie doesn't want to open. Here, I finally got it. And there's probably about 10 or so of those. And they seem like the flexible kind. There is who makes those? Susan Bates, I think, makes these same crochet like stitch markers. I guess that you could also use them for knitting, but this kind is removable. So, anyway, the stitch markers that the Susan Bates ones, the material that they made them out of is a really brittle plastic. And so after like opening and closing them like 4 or 5 times, they just crack and like right in half. And so this plastic is flexible enough that you can use it a bunch of times. Or at least feels like it should. Let's see. Okay. Naughty House in Calgary, Alberta carries some sheep's yarn, so that's good to know. Another location to get it. Might also be faster for those inside Canada. At least you're not waiting for customs clearance or anything like that. You said that the red looks like Swedish fish. It does kind of look like a Swedish fish. Let's see. The charger is a deal breaker for Yaya Creations Crochet because she loses them too often. Yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the world. It does come in a case. Like, the whole set is in a case, so I will do probably a reasonable job of keeping it on hand. And I don't worry too much about cords because I always assume I can get another. But it wouldn't be super easy.
I think it's a 1.35 millimeter DC, probably.
A 1.35 millimeter DC barrel jack.
I can measure it later, but I think that's
Yeah.
what it is. And that you can buy those on Amazon. Like, you can search for Amazon, or on Amazon you can search USB to 1.35 millimeter.
Okay.
And you'll get that cable or equivalent one.
So what my husband's saying is you can get an equivalent cable with relative ease on this. So it's not one that you probably have lying around, but he thinks that, well, he looked on Amazon and it looks like if it's a 1.35 millimeter barrel jack, and he's going to verify that later, that barrel jack to USB is a pretty common and easily available cord. So it does look replaceable. Not, like I said, not one you probably have lying around, but easy enough to get a hold of if you lose it. So, might not be a deal breaker for everybody. Marquita's asking, did I mention what site I purchased them? This just came from Amazon. If you look around for metal light-up crochet hook, it was one of the listings, and I got the set with, I think, 12 heads. 12 heads. So, It's an interesting thing. They didn't expand the case, and I thought this was kind of, I don't know, lame a little bit that they didn't like add the extra spaces for the 3 extra tips. So your choices were 9 or 12, and I went ahead and got the 12 because why not? I like to have all of my options. And so the sizes that the 9 probably comes with is 2.5 through 6.5. And then additionally, I got a 2, a 7, and an 8. So I've got a little bit bigger sizes in here. And then 2.5, 3, 3.5. Trying to reach in here. 4. This one's a 4.5. Probably 5, 5.5, 6, if I was guessing. 5.5, 6, 6.5. So every 0.5 millimeter. It is a little bit odd that there's no like 4.25. I think that's a typical G hook. So normally they go 3.75 and then 4.25. I don't know why, but that's seems more typical. So we go 3.5, 4, 4.5. So you're missing basically 2 sizes there, which are replaced with just a 4. So your 3.75, your F hook, and your 4.25 G hook would both be a 4 in this case, and you just have to work around that. But I'm actually wondering if there's enough room here on the foam that I can cut some spaces for these bigger ones. Like there might be enough spare space over here to just lock these down. It's not actually important that they have a space. It's important to me, though, that I didn't lose one. And it's really easy to see if there's, if there's an empty space that one's missing. And to have 3 random ones in the bag seems a little odd. The other thing I considered doing was moving them all down one, because they're not cut so tightly that they probably couldn't shift one over. And then at least the 3 that were free were the 3 largest ones. Because it's really bothering me that this little bitty one and these 2 big ones are the ones that are stray. And so the way that these get used is you choose the size that you want, and you pick up your crochet handle, your LightUp crochet handle. And then you seat it in here, and I've had a little bit of trouble getting them to pop in because I think they only want to go in one way. Come on. Well, there's a space for the tab to drop into. There we go. So pop it on, and then it comes with this teeny tiny wrench right here. And you just turn it a little bit, or like a quarter turn. And then it's seated, and then you light it up. And it's got 2 levels of lighting. So there's off, bright, and dim. It bothers me insanely that when you push the button on and push it off, that there's a 3rd step. I can see this getting left on a lot. So my husband and I have talked about this a lot in the past. We like lights that go off on, or off high, off low, because no matter what you do, when you hit the button a second time, it goes off rather than to dim. And it just bugs me.
Or
Yeah.
if it could only change intensity right after the first time it comes on.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you could double click, basically. Or like a long press to get it to dim or something. Or even a long press for off. Would be fine with me. Like if it was 1 on, 1 down, and long press, at least I'd always long press. But this, no matter what you do, the button just drops 1 intensity level. Tracy agrees that the hooks not being in their own little slots would make her crazy as well. Like I said, I think I can find enough space in here that I can sneak them in. along the edges here. They won't be in order, which will bug me too, but at least they'll have a space. Dream Seeker said she got the LightUp crochet hooks as a birthday present, used them and found the battery cover would pop off and the batteries would disappear. So she's probably referring to this kind. Yeah, well, I was playing with it and I opened it. But yeah, I could see that being a problem over time, that those came free. I suppose if you were taping over the little switch, you could tape over the battery door and it wouldn't go anywhere. But you'll probably start to look a little crazy if your hooks are all crazy taped up. So, but yeah, this battery door, it's actually funny because it's like when you're trying to open it, it's actually a little bit difficult. And when you're probably not trying, it slides right off. So these little batteries do not want to stay in at all. And I was laughing. I think like this whole set of crochet hooks, these plastic ones, I think we're in the $20 range. And I suspect when they all need new batteries, it's going to cost quite a bit more to replace all the batteries than it would be to just buy new ones. Because they did all come with batteries. This one doesn't want to pop in and pop out so easily. I'm fighting this a little bit. There, I got that one out finally. But I didn't have so much trouble. I've been using the 6mm. That's what I used on the like part of the blanket. And that one popped in much nicer. So I wonder if there's like a little bit of plastic on there. My biggest issue with this hook is just that it doesn't really seat in my hand the way I'd like it to. It's kind of shaped like a toothbrush. Yeah. So we'll zoom in a little bit and show you. And it looks beautiful in my hand right now, but like that's not really how, again, I roll my hook a lot. And like in this position, it's really uncomfortable because it's like kicking my fingers way out. And like that's a lot of hand movement and a lot of stress back here. But if you held your hook or moved your hand differently than I do, it might not be an issue. Yeah, if you hold it like a pencil, it's probably a non-issue. Though this is a little fat for pencil holding, you'd be expanding your fingers a little bit, which might actually be better for somebody with arthritic hands. You're not clamped down as tight. You're a little loose. But that's what I was just wondering. So what my husband was asking is, can you only put the hook on in one direction? And I feel like I just put this one on backwards. I'm going to see if I can get it. So it's facing this way. I want to rotate it that way. So no, I can put it on both ways. I can put it hook up or hook down. So that is one option. It does look like it'll go on both ways. I kind of feel like I want it this way though, which is not locked in. And it's, it can kind of come out. So you can get like an eighth of a turn and it's not going to go anywhere, but it's not secure so much. Like there's secure and then there's open. And so if you go halfway between, you can use it. And then maybe I don't have to fight with it as much. The other thing that I noted while I was using it was, so I did check with calipers, that this, at least the 6mm was 6mm. Actually, I think I checked the 5. But the 5 was 5mm. It was pretty accurate, but the head of the hook was much wider. And so I actually had a really hard time getting it into the slot, into the stitches from the row before. So if I get out, let me get the 5mm and let me get my 5mm crochet hook out. And we'll zoom in and I'll try and hold my hand still. So there's the two hooks. And you can see the shaft is pretty much the same size just by eye. But if I rotate these, the head on this LightUp crochet hook is quite a bit larger. And by quite a bit, I mean 1mm. Which I know sounds ridiculous to complain about 1 millimeter of difference, but I don't know if that's probably not a good view. But yeah, the head on this is just it's a bit larger, and it does make it a bit more difficult to get it into the stitches, because it's bigger than the shaft like that you're tightening it on. And it comes out of the stitches pretty well because you're hooking it out, basically, like you come out like a hook. But going in, you've got to just ram this into a space that's been sized on the shaft and is basically smaller than the head of the hook. So I did feel like it slowed me down a little bit. Yaya Creations asking if the yarn got caught at the connection point. I had no trouble with that, but I guess I don't stick my yarn or my hook in that deep, really. If you were doing puff stitches, I could see it maybe causing some issue. But so this is the 5 millimeter hook, and like my stitches fit just fine on there. But as far as getting the hook into the spaces, like there's a little bit of like, well, that didn't, but like just a little bit too snug in here. Where if I've got my clover hook, it fits right in because it's basically smaller than the shaft size that I'm using. So it goes in without a problem. And of course it's not slippery like the clover hooks, and I didn't expect it to be, but still was pretty nice, and I think is one of those things that like you could get used to. Oh, all the way. They're pretty smoothed over. It doesn't seem to want to catch on the edge of the blanket. And again, I think if you had a bunch of like loops on here, like if you were doing a puff stitch, like maybe it could be a concern, but it seems pretty well seated there. And I can't really even get my fingernail in. Like it locks in pretty tight. Now, if you wanted to use it, like I said, like an 1/8 turn instead of all the way seated, I've lost the little wrench like a billion times, though. That's probably the biggest problem. But if I loosen this like an 1/8 turn, it actually doesn't really make any difference. I still can't get my fingernail anywhere in on there. I'm sure if you were using the most delicate yarn, like a lace weight mohair or something, you might have the potential for a lot more problem. With a worsted weight, acrylic cotton blend, I wasn't an issue at all. But valid concern. I didn't actually even think of that, but could have totally been a major problem. What's that? Yeah. So, I didn't expect it to be slippery metal. It's not. It's more slippery than the plastic crochet hooks. Just because plastic is clingier and is more staticky. But yeah, that's the set there. Or well, it's not a comparison, I guess. Here's the 5. Hooks look near identical. The shaft length on the metal hooks is quite a bit longer. If you do a lot more, like I said, puff stitches or short row Tunisian. Oh, well, let me hold it like this then. Those are about level. Maybe I'm a little high. It's hard to level them with my hands like this, but you can see the shaft length is quite a bit longer on the metal hooks. What I was saying is if you do a lot of puff stitches or short row Tunisian, it might be worth it to have the metal over the plastic. If you like to leave your hooks with your projects, it might be worth it having the plastic over the metal, just because I guess you could leave the head in the project bag, but the hook base you only get one of. So you're kind of stuck to this one particular hook. So And it is nice that it has a rechargeable battery, so you're not replacing tons and tons of little watch batteries. Like I said, when those run dead, it's going to be expensive to replace all those watch batteries. This is just a rechargeable, so that is a benefit. I don't know if this little case is a benefit or not. It's rather clunky, I guess. So I'm going to zip it all up and put all the stuff back in it and then show you the whole, like, case as it is. I think it's kind of on the large size, and that's coming from somebody who carries basically everything with them. So there's everything. Let me get the little instructions. I don't know if they're necessary, but hold on to them. Force this dude closed. Come on. The zipper kind of got hidden in the back here. Alright, so there's the whole thing. It reminds me of a Nintendo DS case. Like, it's about the same size. It might even be repurposed from one. But yeah, so that's the size of the case, and it's pretty substantial. By comparison, this is what I normally carry, which is about the same thickness and a little bit wider. But this has all of my clover. It fits all 10 of my normal clover hooks. It has all of my steel hooks. It has all of the expanded sizes, so the 6.5 and up. It's got all of my yarn needles, a pair of scissors, a little, like, tube of, like, sewing pins, and a bunch of buttons, and a fabric tape measure, and a yarn cutter, and a pen all in it. So, I guess this does have quite a bit in it. It's got all the hook sizes, and it's got, like a little pouch, but it doesn't have all the steels. It doesn't have all the super large hooks. It would probably have space for some of the other stuff, but, yeah. So I guess if you don't mind carrying something this large with all of your projects, that's fine. If you're the type of person who carries like one teeny tiny crochet hook, this might be a big added weight. With these guys, you obviously can just take one of the set with you and just have one hook. So, but yeah. In looking for these and pulling these out, I did come across the Hobby Lobby hooks too. I talked about them a little bit last week. I don't remember if this is a set that you can still get at Hobby Lobby, but these are actually pretty nice plastic hooks from Hobby Lobby. And they've got this really neat, like, vining flower design on the side, which we'll zoom into in a second. So, my biggest complaint with these particular hooks is that they did not go very small with these. So, I think they're listed on the side. This is an 8. It's a 15, 9, 5, 12, 5.5, 6, 6.5, and 10 and 7. So 5 was as small as these went. 5mm hook is a pretty big hook, at least in my world. I spend almost, I would say, 50% of my time using a 3.5mm hook. The rest of the time I use an eye hook, which is a 5.5mm, which I think is this green one here. But these work pretty nice. This plastic was not horrifically grabby. Some plastic hooks are just grabby. This one was not so bad. So, and I did use these quite a bit. I actually got to like them, but like I said, they only go down to a 5mm, and so that gets rid of a lot of use cases, I guess. So I just wanted to show those a little bit. I think you can still get these at Hobby Lobby, but I'm not positive. This was just one of the, like, interesting hooks that you could get. So, Val's saying there's the beauties, love them. I think she's talking maybe about these Hobby Lobby hooks. So, I think she mentioned last week that she liked those. So, that's really all I've got to show tonight. Somebody had asked about bamboo yarn. I think maybe also Val, and I went to pull some bamboo yarns out, and then I wasn't quite sure not what I was pulling them out for, but like what was the question around them? Was it just you wanted to see some, or you wanted to know which ones I liked the most, or I wasn't totally sure what I was after. Most of my bamboo is blended, so I've got like Lion Brand Kobu, which is a cotton bamboo. I might have some Haiku Kobasai, which is cotton bamboo silk. I think I'd have to go back and look at my order from my last order from Ice Yarns and see. I think I got a couple with bamboo, but I just was when I started to pull them out, I wasn't quite sure what I was after. So yeah, I just wanted to verify, and then I can pull those for next week's live stream. So I guess we're just looking for a comparison. So I'll go through what I've got in bamboo, and yeah, and we can talk a little bit about them. Yeah. So let's see. Catcraft said the Hobby Lobby website shows H through K. So it looks like maybe the largest ones that I have are not available, because H through K is not very many sizes. That's only a 5, a 5.5, a 6, and a 6.5, I think. They could also just be sold out. Well, so if it, I guess it shows the H through K. But if they're just sold out of them online, like they might just be sold down because a lot of people are home and crafting. But I don't know if their website shows sold out items or if they just take them off. Some websites just remove things in a very annoying fashion. So you can't even see like, hey, when it like not when it's going to be back, but like that it exists for that website. So. Oh, you can get individuals in the plastic Hobby Lobby, or just yeah. I think I do remember seeing that. I think both Hobby Lobby and Joann have individual LightUp hooks. So, all right. Yeah, we will. Marquita's saying, show us the yarn. I will definitely pull out some bamboo, and or at least bamboo blends. I don't know if I have anything that's 100%. I'll have. That's what I was saying. I'm going to have to go back and look at what we ordered. I think a couple of them might have bamboo in them, but I don't think I own any 100% bamboo. I could be wrong about that, though. Like, there's a lot of yarn over there. So, yeah. If you guys have more questions, crochet related, yarn related, hook related, let me know. That's really all. Like I said, that's really all I've got to show tonight. So yeah, I'm gonna turn it over to you guys if you got questions or whatnot. Otherwise, we can call it an early night. But yeah, trying to see if I've got anything else of interest. Mostly, I'm surrounded by a sea of yarn behind me. That all needs to be put away from all of the like unboxings we've done in the last few weeks. I just have not gotten around to doing any of that, but I should before we get a basement flood or something again. Like not anticipating it, but we never do. So, yeah, I don't know what else. The only other project I've got that I'm like actively working on, and I actually haven't picked it up in a week or so, is a amigurumi doll that I'm working on. So, yeah, I don't even have that down here right now. One of the things I need to do is hunt down all of my crochet hooks. I've got a whole bunch of them in bags, like with projects. And a while back, and I don't know if this is something anybody else is interested in, and I don't know that I've got any around here to show, but I bought a whole bunch of letter beads from, I think, Big Lots, and they were like $1 for a whole bag of letter beads. And I just slipped them onto pins, and then I can put the letter bead in place, or, well, the letter bead with the pin in place of the hook, and then I'm able to pull my hooks back out. So, and not forget what kind of hook I was using. So that was something, but like I've noticed a bunch of my hooks have wandered off with projects, and I'd like to get them all back, so I've got them available. But yeah, that was something I was just going to throw out there. If you have to pull your hooks out of your projects, and can't leave them with the project, a safety pin with a letter bead on it works as a really good reminder of what you were using. It also holds your last stitch in place so that it doesn't come unraveled. Let's see. Marquita's asking if I work much Tunisian crochet. I've done a few Tunisian crochet projects. I'm always way more excited to start them than I am to finish them. For whatever reason, Tunisian crochet sort of wears on me a little bit. I find it a little bit rougher on my hands to, I guess, hold all of the stitches. I've done more with Tunisian short rows than I have with like larger projects, but I don't know. It's not my favorite thing. So like I said, I've done a few. I've got a couple of shawls that I've done. The ones that I liked better were short rows. But yeah, I have not done much. I'd really like, there's a designer, out of Ireland that does a lot of Tunisian short row shawls that are just gorgeous. And every time I try to start one, I just don't get very far in. I kind of give up a little bit. Bridget asked she keeps getting ads for Happily Hooked Crochet Magazine. Do I know if they're any good or anyone? I was a subscriber to Happily Hooked for a really long time, and I really, really wanted to like them. And the patterns just were not... They either weren't super interesting to me, or I didn't really feel like... Some of the time I felt like they weren't like a caliber of project that I would actually consider sufficiently professional to warrant being published. And I know that's kind of mean to say, but I found that there were a lot that were just like they weren't amazing, and I don't know, I always felt that it was just a little bit lackluster. If you're interested in knowing what is in the magazines or like what the patterns are, a really good way is via Ravelry. You go on and you type in Happily Hooked magazine and look it up as a source, and it'll come up like a book, and there'll be a drop-down menu on its main page. And I know Ravelry shuffled some things around, but I assume that it's still right on the page with Happily Hooked, and you can scroll back through every issue that's ever been on there and see every single pattern that was in each issue. So you can drop it down and find, March of 2020 and pull up the March of 2020 edition, and then you hit like, there'll be a tab at the top that says like 6 patterns or 8 patterns, and you click that and it'll show you all the patterns in it. And so if you want to know what's coming through in any given month, you can just flip through and look and see if it's, well, you can either buy the individual magazine, or you can, usually about a month or so after the magazine comes out, you can buy the individual patterns. But more often than not with crochet magazines, pretty much across the board, I find that I like 1 or 2 patterns, and then the rest are things that I will never work up. And so it's usually better for me just to buy the 2 patterns that I want. CZ says happy 4th of July. Yeah, I guess that's this weekend, isn't it? So I will be out of town, and so happy 4th to everybody. Val says thanks again. Good to see the light ups. You're welcome. And again, I will work on pulling what I can find in bamboo. We addressed the Tunisian crochet. Catcraft asked if I host crochet alongs. I thought about it this year, and then it kind of got lost in the shuffle of things. The Facebook group that I have, so I've got a Facebook page, and I made a Facebook group, and that's getting a little bit of usage. Some people are starting to post, and people are starting to comment. And so you can search for @Experiments in Crafting on Facebook and find the Experiments in Crafting group or find the page, and then there will be a button to join the group. And the how do I want to say this? The group will have like a couple of questions that you have to answer, and it should let you auto join. But it might have to wait for approval depending on how I've got the settings set up. So yeah. What's that? Oh, so what I was gonna say is if we get moving and like pick up a little bit in that group, maybe that's the right place to host a crochet along, and maybe we can find a way to do that all as a group. I tend to think of big ideas and then don't follow through as much. Tracy's saying the Happily Hooked YouTube ads are annoying. We pay for whatever the YouTube premium is, so I don't get ads, but I appreciate you watching them because that ad revenue comes to me, at least a portion of it. Most of it goes to YouTube, but when you guys watch ads, I get some small amount, and you guys are probably seeing Happily Hooked ads because you're watching a crochet channel. So you're getting targeted ads, and yeah. So I appreciate you being slightly annoyed by Happily Hooked because it helps support the channel. I guess, I don't know. Or get YouTube Premium, and I think I still get a portion of what would be your ad revenue. I'm not sure about that.
Or they could use some kind of ad blocker thing.
Yeah, you can use an ad blocker, and that's a thing too. So I don't know how those work, but yeah, that's an option, I suppose. Oh, the short row Tunisian. Her name is Ava Nee, but Ava is spelled in the Irish way, and it's like AIOBHE, I think, or it might be AOI. My husband's looking it up, and her last name is NI. And he will, I'm sure, post a link in just a minute. There you go. That goes to Ravelry with all of her designs. She also has an Instagram, I'm sure, and a Facebook and everything. But really, really nice patterns. Like I said, all like Tunisian short rows. She's got one pattern that I think is free. And it's her beginner pattern with the like most tutorials, and like you can learn how she wants the rows done, or not how she wants them, but how she's designed them to work up. I think that pattern is called PAX, PAX. And then everything else is paid patterns as far as I know. She does run sales on a pretty regular cadence though. So you can usually get, a couple dollars off of a pattern. I think I have probably like 4 of her patterns, and she's got some really, really intricate ones that I've just not how do I want to say, like, just put in the effort to learn how to do the Tunisian crochet or the Tunisian short rows really, really well. Supposedly you do not need you do not need Tunisian crochet hooks in order to do her shawls. You probably need a crochet hook though that has a pretty long uncovered portion, like a relatively long shaft on it, so that you can fit all the loops on, but you don't need Tunisian crochet hooks, which are either the extra long ones or the shorter ones that have like a tail. Some people also call them Afghan hooks. It's the same thing. Let's see. Marquita's thanking you for the link. Tracy said yarn or hooks. Just kidding, you get both. I might have missed a comment right above that, but yeah. So,
I think it's from the Happily Hooked ad.
Oh, from the Happily Hooked, yeah. Yeah. I guess all that being said, I did subscribe to Happily Hooked for a long time. There were good patterns in there. Like, don't get me wrong, it wasn't all garbage. I don't want to give that impression. In fact, one of the cowls that I make most often is called like the Sweetheart cowl, and that was a pattern out of a Happily Hooked or what they call the pattern pack, from the same vendors. And there were, like I said, a lot of good patterns in there. A lot of really nice patterns that I will never do as well. Like there's a lot of that in there. And then there were just some in there that just did not thrill me. Yeah, the searching Ravelry, and I think one of my tutorials I show how to do this. If you flip through the channel, there's a couple of Ravelry demos that I've done live. And I show how you can look at a book. And so, like, I don't want to say, like, this one in particular, but, like, if you go on Ravelry, you should be able to see every pattern in this particular book. They're not always perfectly complete, but I do know that Happily Hooked is, in my experience, always accurate. So... it's a really nice way to find out what's in a book if you can't actually like flip through it at the library or something like that. Like this one doesn't have an index. It's got like this page where you can see all the different animals. But theoretically, somebody has made most of these patterns in here, and each one is available so that you can add a project to it. And in order to do that, they have to exist as patterns, and then they show like, hey, they're all from the same source, and that source is a magazine. As far as other magazines go, the only one that I currently pay for is Interweave Crochet, and mostly that's because Interweave's patterns are absolutely stunning, and again, more often than not, they fall into the category of beautiful, but I'll never make them. Usually in Interweave, I find the pendulum kind of swings the other direction from like Happily Hooked. Happily Hooked, the patterns are sometimes a little too simple. Interweave, they're usually like the most intricate thing that's ever existed. And then it's like 7 pages of that. They're also a lot more ad heavy. For better or worse, like if you like to look through the crochet ads, great. If you don't, I don't remember there being any. There were ads, I guess, in Happily Hooked and like little features and stories, but Interweave was definitely very ad heavy. Marquita said like a furl streamline. I'm not. Oh, like for the probably referring to the long shaft for doing the Tunisian short rows. I think I've got a furl streamline in arm's reach if I scoot back a little. This one's a furl streamline, and yeah, that looks like a very good contender. So this is, I think, the only furl streamline I own. And And you can see you've got to about here or so where you can tighten your loops against. But the thing about it is, as long as you've snugged your loops up, you can shove them back here a little bit, as long as you don't like start pulling the yarn. So yeah. I think a streamline would probably be a good option there. You've got a lot to work with. So I tend to use clover hooks, and the clover hooks, I think I showed this last week. You don't have a whole lot of room here on the shaft of the hook, but if you hold on to the end, you can scoot this cover back just a little bit and get a little bit more out of it. If you go any further, you get into the thumb rest that's hidden inside here. So you probably don't want to go back that far, but if you pull it back, you get a little bit more play here. So you could theoretically get a few more loops on there than you would normally be able to. Let's see. Val said, I know what you mean, because there's so much variety of patterns, you usually tend towards one category, like hats or pillows. Yeah, I like cowls. For myself, I like cowls and shawls and fingerless gloves and sometimes hats. I kind of went through a hat phase this winter and made a bunch of hats. But yeah, I gravitate towards those things. I love looking at like intricate jackets and long coats and household items, and I never make them. I don't know why that is, but like I've bought things to do pillow covers, and I just don't do them. And I've got patterns that I like. Actually, I think I've got a pattern book back here. It's a cool one too. I know. I can't find it, but it's a little thin book, and it's all done in filet crochet, of like animal silhouettes. It was really neat, but I still haven't done any of those. Like streamline for, okay, yes. So the clarification was, the Denise interchangeable hooks. Those I'm not familiar with. But an interchangeable hook, as far as the, I think my interchangeables are, I think I just put them down here. So I have, Knit Picks interchangeable Tunisian hooks. They look like this. I've got a couple of them. One of the things to keep in mind for anybody who's looking for Tunisian hooks is you often work with a much, much larger size than you normally would for that size yarn. I made a mistake and bought, well, actually, this is a J hook. This is probably the size hook that I would use for something like my husband's showing me the Denise hooks. Those are interesting. I don't think I've ever seen those. But these are similar in nature to those. You probably can get these in a full set as well. I've bought them one at a time from a local yarn store. But this J hook is probably something you'd be using for like fingering or maybe sport weight yarn. You work ridiculously high up in hooks. So I think when I did a worsted weight yarn, I ended up using this like 10 millimeter hook. And that's just kind of the nature of Tunisian. You work many hook sizes up from what you'd normally expect. So if you're looking at sets of hooks, you probably don't need like a 2 through 4 realistically if you're going to be working with normal-ish yarns. So these hooks are, like I said, the Tunisian ones from Knit Picks. What you do here is you've got the hook, and then there's these different options in like wires, and you just screw them on here. These are also the same wires or like cords as you would use for the Knit Picks double pointed or the circular needles for knitting. So you can buy just a few of these cords. And then there's like a little stick here that you poke in and like tighten like a little lock nut. Or actually, maybe you just use it as a lever arm. That's, I think, what you're supposed to do. So you just stick this in and turn it the last little turn. And then if you're knitting, you would put your other needle on this end. And if you're doing Tunisian crochet, you put this little stopper on the other end. And so you just spin this guy on and then do sort of the same thing where you stick this guy in and tighten it. And that's your Tunisian crochet hook. This is for full-length Tunisian, though, where you can slide just infinite stitches, basically, onto a long cord. And you can get these cords in different lengths. I think you generally want the shortest one you can work with, so that your whole project isn't, like, spread all over the place. You kind of want it snugged up a little. But it lets you... You know, when you work Tunisian, you pick up loop, pick up loop, pick up loop, and you keep sliding them down. And then on the way back, you work all of your loops all at the same time. You basically open up your stitches and then you close up your stitches. And so those are the Tunisian hooks that I like the most. And actually, I don't really like them all that much. I find them to be a little bit rigid, and they're a little bit more like an inline throat rather than a tapered throat. They've got, in fact, they are an inline throat instead of a tapered throat. And so I fight with them a little bit, but they're the nicest ones. They're the nicest ones I can find in like an interchangeable set like that. I should look into the Denise ones and see if they have a tapered, throat on them instead of the inline. All right. I'm a little bit behind on comments. Marquita says, thank you for demoing. You're welcome. That's what this is all about. This is the fun part for me is, you know, having you guys ask questions and then I can pull things from around me and show them, and explain what I would do. And hopefully that helps some people out. Zaina's saying she's a blanket crochet addict. Just finished making a cardigan and ended up frogging it to make a blanket instead. I go through waves. I'll be really attached to one type of thing, and then I'll switch and be really attached to a different type of thing. I've never been that into blankets. I've made a couple of baby blankets, like all in a row. But I have never committed to anything bigger than a large baby blanket, I don't think. But yeah, I've been thinking, I wore this earlier and I was thinking I really ought to crochet myself something similar. Like this is kind of like net-like. Probably isn't totally showing up, but you can see it's kind of netty and I could easily crochet something similar. And then I just don't. I don't really know why. I always just go back to shawls. So I love shawls. I should burn through some stash yarn though and make something different. Val saying her mom did a whole bunch of filet crochet. I like it. I think it's fun to do. I sort of semi forgot how to do it, but because I was trying to explain it the other day and couldn't really work all the way through it. Val also said those are so unique, I believe, referring to the crochet hooks, because I think that's when I saw that comment pop up. Marquita also said that they were pretty. Catcraft said that she bought a bunch of mandala crochet patterns and haven't made any, and is maybe a little bit intimidated. My best suggestion for things like that is to just pick one that you love and just go for it. You'll never know if you can do it if you just jump in. Or you never know if you can do it until you just jump in. So I felt the same way about amigurumi patterns. I was really, really new to crochet, and I learned some of the things I needed to know, and I spent probably, I don't know, 2 weeks trying to learn how to do a magic circle. And then once I got that, I was just sort of home free, and it took some effort and, trials, and it's not going to be perfect, but pick the one that you have to have. That would be like, even if it's not the first one or the beginner level or whatever, just pick the one that speaks to you and do that one. Marquita asked if I have any tips for straightening my cord. I'm not sure she means the cord on the Tunisian hooks. I guess I didn't really have any trouble with. I mean, it spirals around a little bit, but really, once it's underweight, it really wasn't a problem. Like I think I've tried making something a little bit bigger and actually had to use this cord, but I guess it didn't really fight me all that much. I might have used a shorter. I think the shorter cord that I have is in a knitting project. For the very brief time that I tried to knit. But I guess I don't really have any tips for it. Usually tension and light heat is what straightens plastic cord, but you have to be really careful not to get it too soft. But maybe running it under some warm water and then just smoothing it out, you might just get it to sort of work the kinks out. That's maybe my best suggestion. Kind of hot-ish water where you're not going to run into melting it, but might get a little bit more pliable. Kat asked if I do corner-to-corner crochet projects. I've done corner-to-corner blankets. I like those. I have done probably 9 or so Fortune Shawlette, which is a corner-to-corner style shawl. So you work it in a corner-to-corner fashion. It's a slightly modified corner-to-corner block. You basically do a chain 1 instead of doing one of the double crochets. And so it makes it open and lacier. That's a free pattern from Moogly blog. But other than that, I've done a corner-to-corner blanket. I actually have a tutorial on that on the channel. That's, I think, still my most popular video by a long shot. And other than that, I have not done corner-to-corner Grafgans, but I did just get a book. This one here, called Corner to Corner Crochet 15 Contemporary Projects, and there are a couple in here that are intriguing, and I'd like to actually try. In particular, there is a corner to corner beanie, which I thought was really interesting because I don't know how you construct a hat corner to corner since it doesn't have corners. So I don't know if this is worked flat and then seamed and then tightened up, but it's a really interesting idea. I really like corner to corner projects because they work up nicely. And then there's some graphs in here. This one in particular, I really like. It's got kind of a Nordic, pillow look to it. And I like that little, snowflakey star. I don't really know what that symbol is, but that's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of, a winter sweater. So, I could see doing that around Thanksgiving or so to have, as a Christmas decoration. Some of these I'm not super in love with the colors they chose, but might actually like the project. I'm trying to find this yellow one that I just passed. This tapestry pillow is not my favorite color palette, but I could see doing it in something different and liking that pattern. So, this book so far I actually like quite a bit. There's a couple patterns in here that don't super speak to me, but other than that, there's some nice ones in here. But but yeah, so that's Corner to Corner Crochet by Jess Coppom. Coppom. So, let's see. Val says just squares, 4 double crochet or double crochet. Maybe the graphing is time consuming. Oh, okay. I think that was a response to Kat's question of corner to corner. So, that I don't need to read. The graphing is it's really interesting. I think they turn out really cool. There's a lot of end management when you do the graph GANs, as far as I understand, like, because you're changing colors so much, and you either have to carry your yarn or you've got to cut and then sew in ends. And both have pros and cons. Vel's explaining my comment on the filet crochet. Yeah, that makes more sense. Yeah, the filet crochet is relatively easy to pick up, but like the other day when I think I was trying to make it 3 double crochet, and it was not working out when I was like trying to figure out what I was supposed to be doing. So, yeah, I need to do another pattern and then do the graphing, because the graphing part I was actually getting my husband to generate computer files so that I could follow them, which is something he can do for me, and like, you know, take an image and turn it into a graph for me. But then once he gave me a graph, and then I just couldn't make heads or tails of it for whatever reason. So I need to do a project and like refresh my memory. I did a couple of like, they were like back of the toilet doilies, like long rectangles for my husband's grandma's neighbor. And she was very, very appreciative to have them. I guess she had this magazine for like ever and ever, but didn't crochet. And I don't know if she found it in the store or what, but she didn't crochet, and she really wanted these and didn't know anyone, so somehow I got involved. And she was very appreciative of having them, and I think she let me keep the magazine, so, because she got the doilies that she'd wanted. So, yeah, easy but can be tedious. That's I think a pretty good definition of it. It's really hard to keep track of where you're at, and like really easy to miss rows and seriously mess up a pattern. So you've got to, it's practically very easy. It's double crochets or chains. And yeah, if you work side to side and vertical, yeah, there's a whole lot of like rules, I guess. It's kind of like a weird little offshoot of crochet. So but it is a lot of fun, and I like the occasional thread crochet project, and a lot of them are done in thread. I had to fix a filet crochet thread table runner that was like 80 years old. That was actually a really fun project. I enjoyed doing that. It was incredibly tedious, but I had a lot of fun doing it. I ended up having to take yarn. I couldn't buy yarn the color of the, like, it was a white tablecloth, but it had aged over 80 years or however old it was. And so I ended up having to take white yarn, like, that I could purchase and tea-dye it to match it. And so that it was a lot of fun trying to match the shade and then figure out how to. So in the spaces where you do chains, you work double crochets over the top of the chains. And then if the chain breaks, you've got to figure out how to like make a chain, and then you got to take your crochet hook out and like feed it through the bottoms and then fix it back up. And so it was a lot of fun, just like puzzle wise. So I really enjoyed doing a little bit of repair work. Let's see. Lee Mack YouTube crochets portraits of old Hollywood stars. That's pretty cool. I've seen all sorts of crazy things done in graph GANs, and people who will do just crazy amounts of shading and all sorts of things. Reddit is usually like where I see the most of those. Like people will share really insane ones, and they'll get really popular because they'll get attached to whatever fandom they are part of. And so I've seen some really outstanding ones, and yeah, it's just there's never been anything that I wanted to make into a blanket enough to commit to one. So, yeah. Velsin, love to see your items. I don't know if I've anything around in filet crochet. Most of those have been things that I've made for people, and they've been given to those people. I'm trying to think. I don't even have really anything in thread crochet except the one project I haven't finished yet. Which is a pretty cool like thread crochet project. It was a pattern called Fractal. I don't know where that pattern is at actually, because it's not done, so it's around somewhere. But all right. Well, I guess wait another minute or so and see if anyone's got any last minute questions, and then I'm probably gonna wrap up for the evening. And I should be back next Tuesday. I don't know any reason that I wouldn't be. But as always, if I'm not going to stream, we will post on Instagram, Facebook, and then on the community tab on YouTube. So all of those locations, if for some reason we're going to cancel a stream, we've been back and forth about maybe moving the stream to Thursdays. It seems like it might be a slightly better day for us, but this Thursday in particular is not a better day for me. So we went ahead and streamed on today, Tuesday. So you can find me on both Facebook and Instagram at Experiments in Crafting. And again, like I said, if we're not going to stream, we'll put it in all of those locations, Facebook, Instagram, and the community tab. So, with all that being said, thank you all for watching, and we're going to wrap up for the evening, and I hope to see you all next week. And thank you all for like all of the good chat and everything. It's really nice when there's lots of questions and lots of back and forth with people. Even if it's a little bit tough for me to keep up, it's a lot of fun to have lots of chat. So, thank you all for chatting and joining me this week, and I hope to see you all next week. Have a great 4th of July weekend. Bye!